What's going on? It's Jason Heath, and today we're taking a look at a scale that is the bread and butter of any jazz bassist. If you play jazz at all, you have probably spent a lot of time playing in B flat major, and it sits so well on the bass, but it's one of those keys that isn't taught in the early stages of a classical player's development. I think of B flat major as a close relative of F major. The finger pattern is the same at the beginning. It just starts one string higher. It goes into thumb position for the 2-octave scale, but that's no big deal. You have the G harmonic to work with up in thumb position. It's a very friendly place to get started on the bass. One of the challenges of this scale, of course, is that it starts in half position. And so if you're new to the bass, that's a little bit more work oftentimes and requires a little bit of thought and understanding of how to open the hand in a way that's ergonomic. Like I've done for all these 2-octave scales, I'm going to present you two options. Option one is what I think of as the simplest possible fingering. Generally, it's going to the G string and just climbing to the G string. Option two is what I call a template fingering. It's probably going to be a little bit more work at first, but it's one that applies to other scales as you start to get into more flats and more sharps. We've also got an arpeggio fingering, and I always feel like a total lame-o when I put out an arpeggio fingering. I don't know why I have such a problem with arpeggio fingerings, but we got everything stamped with time codes in the description below so you can skip around between me playing the scales and teaching the scales, and let's get going with option one. Just a couple of things I like to recommend on this fingering, option one. When you get to the G string, I tell students to make sure that as they're shifting, they're maintaining connection with the string. They're not necessarily keeping the finger fully down and into the fingerboard, like planing across it, but there's a little bit of an arch to the shape getting between these positions in my experience, talking with violin teachers and cello teachers about that. So for me, the string and my finger maintain a connection, and the string is darn close to the fingerboard, but I do have just a little bit of a scooping motion when I shift. So I play 4, and I try to make my other fingers bump out of the way, and then the first finger just comes up. So from B flat to C, then the same thing, D to E flat. Now 4, thumb, and now we could do 1, 2. For A, B flat. We certainly can do 1, 2. I do 1, 2 a lot of the time. But when I'm teaching this, I like to teach 2, 3 for the A, B flat. So we've got G with thumb, A with 2, B flat with 3. The reason I like that is because it's kind of a replication of half position down here. Thumb would be the open string, then the A, second finger, would be just like second finger here, and then the third finger would be like fourth finger down here. Option two is this template fingering that's always a little bit more challenging, but probably ultimately a little bit more useful as you continue to learn your scales, because a template fingering can be applied to all sorts of different keys. You don't have to factor in the open strings. So for this and all the other template fingerings, I don't do any open strings. And I'm making a decision on what string to play the different groupings on. And as I'm doing these for the camera, I'm always regretting my decision because these fingers just don't sit as well as these option one fingerings. The one I chose for this one, which I stand behind, though there are many ways you could do this, or this finger is 1, 4, 1, 2, 1, 1-4, all on the A string. So some things to think about in terms of this group. I'm always starting with 1 for this group. And I could have done 1-4, 2-4, 1-4. But for the consistency, I like doing 1 for the beginning of all these groups. 1-4, 1-2, 1-4. Now I'm going to pivot, and then we could have done that a lot of different ways. And the one note that I need to watch out, at least on my bass, and you're likely going to have to watch out just because of the nature of that note, is the G natural right here. If there's anything off at all, it'll get this sort of barnyard sound to it. It's an easy note to get wolfy on, and I would not choose to hang out on that note for a long period of time. I would always choose that G natural if I was going to pick. But for faster fingering, which is what you'd probably be using these template fingerings for, this G is a good option. And we could have done so many different things. We could have kept going up the A string. We could have crossed over to the D string. The thing about the template fingerings is we're always doing 2 notes, 2 notes, 2 notes, 3 notes, 3 notes, 3 notes. And it doesn't matter what string you're on or when you choose to shift around, you play 2 notes and then you either shift or change strings, 2 more notes, either shift or change strings, 2 more notes, same thing. And then you do 3 notes, 3 notes, 3 notes. So again, 2 notes, 2 notes, 2 notes, 3 notes, 3 notes, 3 notes. That cuts down on the number of information packets. That's my thinking on it anyway. And it makes these 2 octave scales feel a little bit more connected. The arpeggio fingering. Arpeggio fingering, I don't know. This one's okay, I think. I'm using the open D string to make my getaway from half position up to the neck position, and then I'm using this thumb D harmonic to make the transition to completely in thumb position. So we play 1, open. Now I'm really making quite a shift in terms of my body to get to this F natural. For me, and the way I play bass, I bow into the bass a little bit. The neck's not touching my shoulder, but I'm not quite as upright. And there are many ways to do this in many schools of bass playing, and I've done a lot of different things in my life. This is just what I'm doing at this point in my life and have done for the last little while. So again, use that as a pivot point, or transition point, maybe I should say. Now, thumb on the D harmonic, 2, 3. One thing I like about this fingering is that the string crossings are perfect fourths, and you're doing them in a similar manner. Here I'm playing 2-2. Because of the nature of my hand, the fingers are perpendicular to the strings. Up here, my fingers are more at a 45 angle to the string, so playing 2 and then 3, just the way that those fingers lie on the bass at that point, for my hand and for many people's hands, that seems to be the most comfortable. That's a quick look inside the B-flat major 2 octave scale and how I approach it in my own practicing, how I approach it with students. And you know, whether it's the B-flat major 2 octave scale or whatever you're doing on the bass, as you're building your skills, as you're either getting back into the bass or learning the bass for the first time, take it slow, but be consistent. Slow and steady progress will lead to amazing things over time. People tend to overestimate what they'll get done in a month and underestimate what they can do in a year. But I find that for me and the students I've worked with, even if you feel like you're on a plateau or maybe you're even backsliding a little bit, if you think intelligently, take it slow, record yourself, use a drone, use a metronome, and work on these simple elements of music that really aren't that simple when you get down to it. That's how you get better on your instrument. Thank you so much for watching this video. We've got the PDF for this and all 2 octave major scales, all the fingerings I went through, linked in the description below, and we'll see you in the next video.